So a few days ago, there was a series of explosions on the sun. And we realised late on Friday, New Zealand time, that something like 6 solar tsunamis had been released by the sun. So that's an explosion on the surface of the sun, throwing out a cloud of material, just like a tsunami, and these were Earth-directed. So over the weekend, at least 5 or 6, we're not exactly sure now, of these solar tsunamis smashed into the magnetic field of the Earth, energized the whole system, and triggered the beautiful aurora that we all got to see, particularly on Saturday night. So this was a big event. It was on the top of the geomagnetic storm scale that the US government Space Weather Prediction Center uses. Having said that, it was at the lower end of this big event scale. It's what happens when the magnetic field is crushed down is it changes the magnetic field on the surface of the Earth, and that induces currents in any electrical conductor. It's called Faraday's law. Now, human beings have put electrical conductors all over the world in the form of power grids. And so these currents get induced during these really big geomagnetic storms, and they're not meant to be there. So they can get into the transformer, cause saturation, cause negative impacts. Once upon a time, in 2001, this happened. There was a big event, and in Dunedin, we had a transformer burnt out in the hills of Dunedin, caused by these currents. So Transpower has always known, in the back of their heads, that this was a potential issue. Relatively recently, while working with Transpower, it's become clear that a big event, not like last Saturday, but a really big event, the sort of thing that we think will occur maybe 1 in 100 years, as an extreme event, that could be really not good for the transformers in New Zealand, with something like 15% of the transformers in New Zealand, maybe a bit more, being put under quite a lot of stress and strain and potentially failing. And one of the issues is that these are not the sort of transformers that you go down to JCar or the warehouse or whatever to replace. You have to get them built to order. It's big money, you stand in a queue, and when a global event has destroyed transformers all over the world, New Zealand's not clearly going to be in the front of the queue. So what we've been doing as scientists is working with Transpower, smart engineers, to come up with a plan as to what we would do, should say what they would do, when a really big geomagnetic disturbance occurs. And this mitigation plan is about re-switching the power network to take the tops off those peaks, make the total amount of induced currents lower. We had this big geomagnetic storm on Saturday. It reached, not by a lot, but it reached the threshold of the G5, biggest possible storm that they have in their system. And because of that, Transpower enacted the plan. Now, this plan was developed by my PhD student and myself, which is a really great thing. At the end of his PhD, he'd done all this modelling as what an extreme storm would be like, and we flew to Wellington, and we sat in the Transpower control room simulator, right next to the control room, and they simulated a winter's day in New Zealand. They picked winter so that they've got high power load. And then we started working out what transmission lines we should take out of the network. And my PhD student had his laptop there, and he was doing modelling to see what the changes would be as they reorganised the network, and they made sure that the network remained stable. So when they did this plan, customers would not lose electricity. So we'd keep the lights on. And it took us most of a day of working through and building this cookbook. But it was a really exciting event because that plan, and it took 9 months for the plan to get approved and everybody to get the training, but that's turned into New Zealand's official response from Transpower for a geomagnetic storm. And so Dr. Daniel McManus, he came up with that plan, we published some scientific papers, he got his PhD, and now Transpower's used it in anger to protect our country. It's a great result.